The college football season isn't too far away, but I still have some pretty big questions about the Colorado Buffaloes.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs, everybody. I'm Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about my biggest questions regarding Coach Prime and the coaching staff, my biggest questions regarding the defense. But first, we're going to start off with my biggest questions regarding the offense. There's 10 in total, 10 questions. If you have any questions, fire them off in the comment section. I'll address them on a later episode. But the 10 questions are in honor of Locked On turning 10 years old. Shout out to David Locke and shout out to everyone at Locked On who's made it possible. So without further ado, let's dive in. First question for the offense: is Juju Lewis ready? Coach Prime has said he's coming around the mountain a couple times. And to me, when I hear someone is coming around the mountain, it's like they are coming, but they're not there, right? So if you were to ask me, hey, like we're meeting for dinner at our local Mexican spot because I like Mexican food, and it's like, hey, I'm meeting you there. And you said, are you here? And I said, I'm around the corner. That means I'm not there yet. Doesn't mean I'm far away, but it doesn't mean I'm not there yet. When he says he's coming around the mountain, is that just supposed to mean like he's close, or does that mean he's not close at all and he's still getting there? And I will give him this. Julian Lewis is having to learn one of the more complex offenses in college football. Brendan Marion came on my show about a month or so ago and was like, yeah, this offense is not easy to learn for quarterbacks, right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of alignment. There's a lot of movement. And so is Julian Lewis ready as a player, as a leader, as just a point guard, right? Because that was another thing Brendan Marion told me was, hey, my quarterbacks need to serve as a point guard. They need to be able to run the offense. They need to be able to distribute the ball, whether it be throwing or in the run game. So is Julian Lewis ready? That is my big question right now for the offense. Number two, sort of pertaining to Julian Lewis as well, how long does he get to figure things out? If Julian Lewis is truly not ready, and we don't know that he's ready or not, maybe they just don't want to add added pressure to him because he's already the 5-star. He's already the Colorado quarterback. He's already playing for Coach Prime, which is pressure in itself. But how long does he get? How many games does Julian Lewis get to sort of struggle, right? Colorado pulled the trigger really early last year on a quarterback change. They pulled Kalen Taylor in the second game against Delaware, right? They were like, okay, after week one, we're rotating quarterbacks. I thought that was far too premature. But I will say Colorado's first 4 games, even really their first 5 games, are a lot more difficult this year than they were last year, right? You're on the road at Georgia Tech. Like, welcome to college football. Like, it's not his first career start, but he started, I think, at West Virginia as well. So he started in hostile road environments, but Georgia's his home state. Is there added pressure there? Then you return home, you play Weber State, and that should be an easy win at home if all things go correctly, knock on wood, right? And then after that, you go at Northwestern, at Baylor, then against Texas Tech, right? Those are some pretty tough games for Julian Lewis to sort of, like, there's no easing your way into that, right? Ideally, you would play a Weber. Maybe then you'd play the Citadel or something else, another G5 program or FCS program where it's like, hey, we are just going to beat up on you so we could build up some confidence, right? He doesn't really get that. It's like he's going to be in battles right away. And if they feel as if, hey, Julian Lewis isn't the guy right now, how many games do they get? Isaac Wilson, Brendan Marion raved about him as well. He said he's sort of found his confidence back. He's found himself in Boulder after a tough time at Utah, right? He went into Utah thinking, yeah, I'll probably sit behind Cam Rising for a year and then I'll take over. And it was like, oh, actually, you're starting as a freshman. And he was not ready as a freshman. Turned the ball over a lot. Just was not comfortable in the pocket. And then last year they bring in a quarterback in Devin Dampier. So he just was kind of moved all over the place. So, yes, how long does Julian Lewis get? And if so, when do they go to Isaac Wilson or Cannell Sweetline? Who takes over at running back? We all know that the go-go offense utilizes multiple running backs, right? We've seen it time and time again. Last year it was Damien Henderson. I think the other guy's name was Julian Hammond from Sac State. They were the two main guys. Jaquel Smith also had quite a few rushing yards as well. Sac State was a great running team. But every running team or every team that Brendan Marion has had on offense they have at least a bell cow guy, right? There's a guy who eventually becomes the de facto guy. There's a guy who's also right there with him and like it's sort of his Robin, but who is the Batman of the group, right? Right now, my early contenders are to Kalen Taylor, right? I think he's very versatile, can be used in the passing game. Got injured last year, so we didn't get to see a ton of him, but I liked what we saw early. You have Damien Henderson, who, like I said, was really good at Sac State, 500 yards rushing, average, I think it was over 6 yards per carry. And then you have Richard Young from Alabama, the transfer. He's a big physical dude, right? Which one of those guys is able to take over? And it's hard to base it off experience because last year's Sac State leading rusher had like 35 yards rushing the year prior at Pitt. So you just never know who's going to step up. Maybe it's Jaquel Smith. Maybe it's a freshman. Maybe it's Cam Newton, right? Who knows? But I want to know who takes over. And are they, and I think Brennan Marion probably handles the rotations more so this year than as opposed to last year where Colorado was a mess with their rotations. Do they actually ride the hot hand, right? I think this is a hand-in-hand question. Who becomes the guy and do they ride the hot hand? Too many times last year, it felt like someone would have momentum and then they would put in someone random, right? And then all of a sudden we get to that Arizona State game where it's like, okay, I think it was Dallin Hayden gets you to that point. And then you put in, his name's slipping my mind and I don't even think he's on the team anymore, but the walk-on. And it's like, okay, who has never got a touch and he fumbles the ball and Arizona State scores on the very next play on a like 85-yard run to really seal the deal on the season. Like, are the rotations going to be better? That would be my sub question for this. Which wide receiver do we think is the odd man out, if there is one, right? I think Colorado right now has probably the deepest wide receiver room in the Big 12. Danny Scudero is going to get touches. DeAndre Moore is going to get opportunities to get a lot of touches. Joseph Williams is the physical wide receiver. And then you have Cam Perry, you have Ernest Campbell, you have Cornell Farrakhan, you have Quentin Gibson. You have a lot of names, right? You have 6 wide receivers, really, who could rotate in there. I have a lot of questions, and I asked Brennan Marion about this, and he kind of was like, it's positionless football. So if you're making plays, you're going to get the ball. But does there come a point in the season where they just go, you know what, we got to cut down on the rotation. Like, we can't play all of you. We have Zach Atkins that we need to feed. We have a lot of running back. Maybe the run game gets going, right? Like, who is going to be the odd man out where we're like, right now it's like, oh, this guy's going to be really good. And it's like, actually, he's not going to have the biggest load, right? I think that is a valid question. I think it's an unpopular question because I think Brendan Marion was like, they're not really worried about that. But I do feel like we're going to get to a point where, like, Cam Perry was, I think he led his team in receiving yards or touchdowns or something. He was one of his team's top receiver. Joseph Williams was second on the team in receiving yards and receptions last year. DeAndre Moore is typically the second or third guy for Texas. Danny Scudero led all of college football in receiving yards. Ernest Campbell was the leading receiver in Brendan Marion's offense last year, right? There's a lot of guys who have had experience being either the Batman or the Robin. Maybe you're not the Batman or the Robin. Maybe you're the Alfred, right? Maybe you're I don't know any other Batman characters, but maybe you're the guy, maybe you're Alfred's assistant. I don't know. Like, maybe you're going to get opportunities to get some screen time, but is it going to be the 60 to 80 catches you had last year? Probably not. And I think that could be something that could be difficult to navigate for the players and especially the coaches, right? You have to make sure you nail these rotations. It's hard to keep everybody happy. You won't keep everybody happy, but it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, that's a part of life. That is a part of football where it's like, we can't play all of you at the same time. And we're just going to have to sort of figure it out as we go. So those are my questions about the offense. What are my questions about the defense? What are your questions about the defense? I'll talk about mine in a quick second.